Have you ever noticed how the simplest things in life are often hiding in plain sight? Walk into almost any American home, open a laundry cabinet, or look beneath the kitchen sink, and you may find a small box of borax sitting quietly on a shelf. It has probably been there for months, maybe years. Most people think of it as nothing more than a laundry booster or a household cleaner. Some have never opened the box at all. But for generations of gardeners, especially those who learned from parents and grandparents instead of glossy catalogs, borax was something entirely different. It wasn't a miracle, it wasn't magic, and it certainly wasn't the answer to every gardening problem. But when used correctly, and only when used correctly, this simple mineral became one of the most useful tools around the home and garden. Today, however, borax has become surrounded by confusion. One person claims it cures every garden problem. Another insists it should never touch the soil. Some videos recommend scattering handfuls everywhere. Others warn that even a pinch will ruin your garden forever. So who is right? The truth, as it often does, lies somewhere in the middle. Borax can be useful. It can also cause serious problems when misused. Knowing the difference is what separates an experienced gardener from someone simply chasing internet shortcuts. So today, let's slow down for a few minutes and uncover what every gardener should actually know before reaching for that familiar white box. Long before expensive garden centers filled every town, people depended on knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Grandparents taught children how to recognize healthy soil. Neighbors shared seeds across backyard fences. Garden problems were discussed over coffee instead of online forums. Back then, buying another product wasn't always an option. People learned to work with what they already had: wood ash, eggshells, compost, vinegar, baking soda, and yes, borax. Unlike many modern products, borax isn't manufactured inside a chemical factory. It is a naturally occurring mineral. Scientists call it sodium tetraborate. It forms over thousands of years as water slowly evaporates from ancient lakes, leaving behind mineral deposits beneath the desert floor. Some of the largest deposits in North America are found in California. For well over a century, borax has been mined, refined, and sold for countless household purposes. People used it for cleaning, laundry, soap making, preserving wood, even certain industrial applications. Its usefulness became so well known that it quietly found another home: the garden. Not because someone advertised it, but because gardeners experimented, patiently, carefully, season after season, one discovery after another. Some of those discoveries proved valuable, others proved to be mistakes. Over time, experienced gardeners learned something extremely important. Borax is one of those materials where a tiny amount can be helpful, but too much can quickly become harmful. That single lesson explains almost everything else. Perhaps the biggest misunderstanding about borax begins with the word boron. Plants require many different nutrients. Most gardeners immediately think of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Those are the nutrients listed in large numbers on fertilizer bags. But plants also require tiny amounts of other elements called micronutrients: iron, zinc, copper, manganese, and boron. Boron plays an important role inside plants. It helps move sugars, supports healthy cell growth, assists flower development, and contributes to successful fruit production. Without enough boron, certain crops begin showing unusual symptoms. New leaves may become distorted, growing tips may die back, fruit may develop poorly, root crops can become corky inside. Yet here's the important part: plants need incredibly small amounts. Not handfuls, not cups, tiny amounts. Think of boron the way you might think about salt in cooking. A pinch improves the meal, half the container ruins it. That is why experienced gardeners have always approached borax with caution. Used where boron is genuinely lacking, it can solve a specific deficiency. Applied carelessly, it may damage the very plants you're trying to help. Understanding this difference matters far more than memorizing recipes. One of the most common questions gardeners ask is whether borax really works against ants. The answer is yes, but perhaps not in the way many people imagine. Most insect sprays kill immediately. The insect touches the chemical attacks its nervous system. The insect dies. Borax works much more slowly. Worker ants searching for food discover sweet bait containing a very small amount of dissolved borax. They don't recognize it as dangerous. Instead, they happily carry it back to the colony. They feed the queen. They feed developing larvae. Over time, the entire colony becomes affected. Ironically, killing the first ants you see often prevents this process. Those workers never return home. The colony survives. This is why many experienced pest specialists recommend slow-acting baits for household ant problems. Patience often succeeds where speed fails. Of course, this raises another question. If borax works against ants, why not scatter it all over the garden? Because gardens are complicated places. Ants are only one small part of an enormous ecosystem. Your garden is filled with earthworms, ground beetles, native bees, butterflies, beneficial fungi, countless tiny organisms invisible to the naked eye. Every treatment affects more than the pest you happen to notice. Good gardeners learn to ask one simple question before applying anything. What else might this affect? Sometimes doing nothing is the wiser choice. Sometimes removing a single ant colony is perfectly reasonable. The challenge is learning when each response makes sense. The same careful thinking applies to another common garden problem: slugs. If you've ever walked into your garden early in the morning and discovered holes chewed through lettuce leaves or hostas that looked perfect the night before, you've probably met them. Slugs rarely appear during sunny afternoons. They hide beneath mulch, rocks, boards, flower pots. Then after dark, they emerge to feed. Over the years, gardeners have experimented with dozens of homemade slug remedies: coffee grounds, crushed eggshells, copper tape, beer traps, diatomaceous earth. Borax occasionally appears on these lists as well. Some gardeners report success using small barrier applications in limited situations. Others find little improvement at all. The results often depend upon rainfall, soil moisture, slug species, and countless local conditions. That is one of gardening's greatest lessons. Very few solutions work exactly the same everywhere. What succeeds beautifully in Oregon may disappoint someone gardening in Georgia. Climate changes everything. So does soil. So does weather. The most experienced gardeners rarely speak in absolutes. Instead, they say something much more useful. This worked well in my garden. That small difference reflects years of wisdom. Gardens are living systems, not laboratories. Perhaps the greatest danger surrounding borax today isn't the mineral itself, it's the internet. Every week, new videos promise miracle garden hacks. Pour this around every plant. Mix that into every watering can. Scatter this everywhere. Harvest twice as much. Never weed again. Never buy fertilizer again. The problem with miracle advice is that nature almost never works that way. Healthy gardens are built slowly. Healthy soil develops over years. There are no shortcuts replacing observation, patience, and good habits. Even something as useful as compost cannot solve every problem. Neither can mulch. Neither can borax. Every tool has its purpose. Every tool also has its limits. Recognizing those limits is what makes someone an excellent gardener. As spring turns into summer, experienced gardeners spend surprisingly little time searching for miracle products. Instead, they spend time watching. Watching leaves, watching insects, watching flowers, watching weather. Plants tell remarkable stories if we're willing to pay attention. Yellow leaves, curling stems, poor fruit production, unusual spots. Every symptom becomes a clue. The goal isn't simply fixing problems, it's understanding why those problems appeared in the first place. Sometimes insects are responsible, sometimes disease, sometimes weather, sometimes watering, sometimes nutrition. Correct diagnosis always comes before treatment. That lesson alone has saved countless gardens, because treating the wrong problem usually creates two problems instead of one. As our grandparents often understood, the first solution isn't always opening your wallet. Sometimes it's opening your eyes, looking more closely, thinking more carefully, asking better questions. Borax has earned its place in many gardeners' toolboxes over the years, not because it performs miracles, but because, when used wisely and appropriately, it can solve certain very specific problems. The key word is wisely. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore where borax can genuinely be useful in the garden, which common garden myths simply aren't supported by evidence, and why 2 spoons can sometimes help, but 3 may do far more harm than good. Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever used borax in your garden or around your home? If so, what was your experience? Share it in the comments. Your story might help another gardener facing the very same challenge. By now, you might be wondering something. If borax has been quietly used in gardens for generations, why doesn't every gardener use it today? The answer is surprisingly simple. Because borax is not a general-purpose garden product. It is a very specific tool for very specific situations. Think of it like a screwdriver. A screwdriver is incredibly useful, but you would never use it to hammer a nail. Borax works the same way. Used where it belongs, it can solve certain problems remarkably well. Used everywhere else, it can create entirely new ones. That is why experienced gardeners have always respected it, not feared it, not worshipped it, simply respected it. Let's begin with one of its best-known uses: ants. Every gardener has seen them. Long lines moving across sidewalks, marching through raised beds, building nests beneath stepping stones. Most of the time, ants themselves are not the real problem. In fact, many species actually improve soil by creating tiny tunnels that help water and air move underground. The real trouble begins when ants protect aphids. Aphids produce a sweet liquid called honeydew. Ants love it. In exchange, they defend the aphids from ladybugs and other natural predators. Imagine tiny farmers protecting tiny livestock. That is essentially what ants are doing. The result? Aphid populations grow rapidly. Plants weaken, leaves curl, new growth becomes distorted. Many gardeners immediately blame the aphids. But sometimes the real solution begins with managing the ants. This is where borax bait has earned its reputation. A small amount mixed into sweet bait allows worker ants to carry it back into the colony. The important word here is small. If the concentration is too strong, workers die before reaching the nest. If it's too weak, the colony survives. Patience matters. Slow action often produces better long-term results than immediate kills. Yet even here, restraint remains important. Place bait where ants are actively traveling, not randomly throughout the garden. Target the problem. Don't blanket the landscape. That philosophy applies to almost every successful gardening practice. Another topic that frequently appears in gardening conversations is soil nutrition. Many gardeners spend hours choosing fertilizers: nitrogen for leafy growth, phosphorus for roots, potassium for flowers and fruit. Yet very few think about micronutrients. These tiny nutrients are required in remarkably small quantities. Boron is one of them. Without enough boron, certain crops struggle. Tomatoes may produce fewer healthy fruits. Cauliflower can develop brown, hollow centers. Beets sometimes become rough or corky inside. Apple trees may show poor fruit quality. But here's something many new gardeners don't realize. True boron deficiency is relatively uncommon in many home gardens. It depends entirely on your soil. Some soils naturally contain enough boron, others contain very little. Adding borax without knowing which situation applies is a little like taking medicine without knowing your diagnosis. It might help, or it might make things worse. Professional growers often begin with soil testing. Instead of guessing, they measure. That simple habit prevents countless mistakes. Because unlike nitrogen, which can sometimes be corrected after mistakes are made, too much boron can remain in the soil for quite some time. Plants absorb only what they need, the rest stays behind. Sensitive crops begin showing symptoms. Leaf edges may turn yellow, growth slows, roots weaken. The very nutrient meant to help becomes the source of damage. It is one of gardening's great paradoxes. Tiny shortages matter. Tiny excesses matter too. That is why experienced gardeners often describe boron as a nutrient that plants need in whispers, not in shouts. I have always liked that expression. It captures the idea perfectly. Sometimes less truly is more. Another place where borax frequently enters the conversation is fungal diseases. If you've ever grown squash, cucumbers, pumpkins, or zucchini, you've probably encountered powdery mildew. It usually begins as small white patches, almost like flour dusted across the leaves. At first, it seems harmless. Within days, it spreads. Soon, entire leaves appear covered in gray-white powder. Photosynthesis slows, plants weaken, harvests decline. Gardeners naturally begin searching for solutions. Over the years, countless homemade remedies have appeared. Milk sprays, baking soda, potassium bicarbonate, neem oil. Borax occasionally joins this list. Some gardeners report success using carefully diluted mixtures under certain conditions. Others notice little improvement. Why the difference? Because powdery mildew isn't one single disease. Several different fungi produce similar symptoms. Weather plays a role. Humidity matters. Air circulation matters. Plant spacing matters. No single spray solves every situation. Experienced gardeners usually combine several strategies. Water at soil level rather than overhead. Improve airflow. Remove heavily infected leaves. Choose resistant varieties whenever possible. Healthy gardening rarely depends upon one magic ingredient. It depends upon many good habits working together. Borax, when appropriate, may become one small part of that larger picture, but it never replaces good gardening practices. Perhaps the biggest mistake people make with borax is assuming that if a little helps, more must help even more. Nature rarely works that way. Consider vitamins. Your body needs iron, but too much iron becomes dangerous. You need water. Too much water can also become dangerous. Nearly everything in nature depends upon balance. Plants are no different. 1 tablespoon where only 1 teaspoon belongs can make an enormous difference. This is why older gardeners often measured carefully using ordinary kitchen spoons. Not handfuls, not guesses, actual measurements. They understood something modern gardeners occasionally forget. Precision matters. One old farmer once said something that has stayed with me for years. He said, "The garden remembers everything you do to it." At first, I wasn't sure what he meant. Then he explained. If you improve the soil, the garden remembers. If you neglect watering, the garden remembers. If you over-fertilize, the garden remembers. Every decision leaves a small fingerprint, sometimes immediately, sometimes months later. Borax is exactly that kind of decision. Careful use may quietly improve one specific issue. Careless use may create problems that linger much longer than expected. That doesn't make borax good or bad. It simply makes it powerful enough to deserve respect. The same is true of every useful gardening tool. Even compost can cause problems if piled against tree trunks. Even water becomes harmful when roots remain constantly flooded. Understanding limits is one of the greatest signs of gardening wisdom. Interestingly, many experienced gardeners eventually become less interested in products altogether. Instead, they focus on prevention. Healthy soil grows healthier plants. Healthy plants naturally resist more insects and diseases. Proper spacing improves airflow. Mulch conserves moisture. Diverse plantings attract beneficial insects. Birds help control caterpillars. Ladybugs reduce aphids. Nature often solves problems when we allow it enough balance. The healthiest gardens rarely depend on constant intervention. They depend upon healthy ecosystems. Borax has its place within that system, but it should never become the system itself. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside this little white box. The answer isn't choosing between natural gardening and modern gardening, nor between homemade remedies and commercial products. The real answer is understanding why each tool exists, when it helps, when it doesn't, and having enough patience to choose wisely. Gardening has always rewarded thoughtful people more than hurried people. Plants grow at their own pace, so does wisdom. The longer we garden, the less interested we become in miracle cures. The more interested we become in understanding, because understanding lasts much longer than shortcuts ever do. In the final part of our journey, We'll explore the biggest mistakes gardeners make when using borax, discuss important safety considerations around pets, wildlife, and edible crops, and answer the most important question of all. Should borax actually have a place in your garden, or is it better left on the laundry shelf? Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. What's the biggest pest or garden problem you're dealing with this season? Ants, aphids, powdery mildew, slugs, or something completely different? Let me know in the comments. I always enjoy seeing how gardeners from different parts of the country face completely different challenges while growing the very same plants. So, after everything we've explored, one important question remains. Should you actually use borax in your garden? The answer is neither a simple yes nor a simple no. Instead, the answer depends on understanding what borax was always meant to be. It is not an all-purpose fertilizer. It is not a universal pesticide. It is certainly not a miracle product capable of solving every problem in the garden. Borax is simply one tool among many. And like every good tool, its value depends entirely on how and when it is used. Perhaps the greatest lesson experienced gardeners pass down isn't a recipe or a secret ingredient. It's patience. They rarely rush to treat the first yellow leaf. They don't panic when they see a few insects. Instead, they stop. They observe. They ask questions. What changed? Has the weather been unusually wet? Has it been too dry? Is this damage spreading, or is it staying the same? Could this actually be a beneficial insect instead of a harmful one? Those simple questions often prevent expensive mistakes. The best gardeners become excellent detectives long before they become expert problem solvers. Borax teaches exactly the same lesson. If ants are invading your patio or home, a carefully prepared borax bait may help reduce the colony over time. If a soil test confirms a genuine boron deficiency, a carefully measured application can improve the health of certain crops. But those situations are very different from scattering borax across an entire vegetable garden simply because someone online promised bigger harvests. That is where problems begin. Plants need boron in tiny amounts. Excess boron cannot simply disappear overnight. It can build up in the soil and affect sensitive plants for months or even longer. Leaf tips may yellow, growth may slow, seedlings may struggle to establish healthy roots. Ironically, a gardener trying to help their plants may accidentally create the very problem they're hoping to avoid. This is why careful measurement has always mattered. Older gardeners often repeated the same advice. If one spoon works, don't assume two are better. Nature rewards balance, not excess. Another important consideration is the living world beyond our vegetables. Every healthy garden is home to thousands of unseen helpers. Earthworms quietly loosen compacted soil. Native bees pollinate flowers. Ladybugs feed on aphids. Ground beetles hunt harmful insects after sunset. Tiny fungi and bacteria recycle nutrients beneath our feet every single day. A thriving garden isn't just plants growing in dirt. It's an entire ecosystem working together. Whenever we apply anything, whether it's borax, fertilizer, herbicide, or even an organic product, we should always ask one simple question. How might this affect everything else living here? That single habit can transform the way we garden. Responsible gardeners don't simply solve today's problem, they protect tomorrow's garden as well. One area where many people should be especially cautious is around children and pets. Although borax is naturally occurring, that doesn't mean it should be treated casually. Like many household products, it should always be stored safely and used only according to recommended amounts. Dogs may investigate sweet ant baits. Young children naturally explore the world with their hands. Simple precautions make all the difference. Keeping products properly stored and placing baits only where they cannot be reached protects both your family and your garden. Gardening has always been about stewardship, taking care of the land, taking care of the people who enjoy it, and taking care of the wildlife that shares it with us. Perhaps that's why the best gardens rarely look perfect. You'll still find a few insect holes, a slightly crooked tomato, a leaf with a tiny blemish. Nature was never designed to be flawless. It was designed to be alive. Sometimes we become so focused on eliminating every pest that we forget something remarkable. The presence of a few insects often means the garden itself is healthy enough to support life. The goal isn't creating a lifeless garden, it's creating a balanced one. Looking back, it's easy to understand why borax remained popular for so many generations. It was affordable, easy to store, readily available. And when used wisely, it solved certain problems without requiring shelves full of expensive products. But perhaps its greatest lesson has nothing to do with borax at all. It reminds us that gardening has never been about buying the newest solution. It has always been about learning, observing, experimenting carefully, respecting nature, and passing that knowledge to the next generation. Sometimes the most valuable thing growing in a garden isn't the tomatoes, or the peppers, or the strawberries. It's the wisdom planted there year after year. If today's discussion inspires you to remember just one thing, let it be this. Don't believe every gardening shortcut you see online. Ask questions, read reliable sources, start with the smallest effective amount. And remember that healthy soil, careful observation, and patience will almost always produce better gardens than chasing miracle cures. That approach has served gardeners well for hundreds of years, and it will likely continue serving them for hundreds more. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever used borax in your garden? Did it solve a problem, or did you decide it wasn't worth the risk? Share your experience in the comments below. Your advice could help another gardener avoid a costly mistake or discover a solution that truly works. And if you enjoy practical, science-backed gardening tips that separate fact from fiction, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next adventure. There are countless old gardening traditions still worth exploring, and together we'll discover which ones truly stand the test of time.